Hello and welcome to your OPS 345 Week 8 lecture video. This week we're going to look at DNS. We're going to learn all about DNS, which you should have talked about in a couple of your other courses, probably your Windows course. And we're going to use a domain registrar, Bindistrar, which we'll talk about a little bit, to map a domain name to your Elastic IP that you've given your router. And we're going to use that next week in Lab 6 as well to do some additional stuff. So we're going to look at the domain name system, DNS. We're going to look at record types, how to query DNS servers, not just through a browser like you usually do, right, but for more testing purposes, and some sample DNS query output. So DNS, the domain name system, is important. It's a key technology behind how the internet works. Without DNS, you would have to memorize every website you browse to by IP address, and that just isn't feasible, right? The very first implementation of DNS was Bind, the Berkeley Internet Name Domain, which was developed in 1984 for Unix. Now, Bind is still around today, and you can technically still install it. In fact, we used to do that in this course before it went to the cloud. DNS is a hierarchical distributed system. It maps IP addresses to human-readable domain names, like google.ca, right? You just you type www.google.ca, and it takes you there, and you don't know what the IP address is. Now, all domains descend from root, much like the Linux file system. And that's represented by a single dot at the end of the fully qualified domain name, or FQDN. Early web browsers required you to put that dot at the end of a URL, a uniform resource locator, which we're going to look at in a minute. We don't have to do that. We haven't had to do that in a very long time. In fact, you don't even have to put the www, do you? You just, it's just there, right? It just prepends it. Just like it appends that dot invisibly. Now, DNS is hierarchical, right? Everything descending from root, which is represented by a dot at the end of the domain name. For that reason, it's read from right to left, not left to right, with your top-level domains, .com, .ca, and so on and so forth, at the very end, after that dot that descends from root. Next, you have the apex domain, and any subdomains they contain. So I've got an example here. I swiped these from another course, cnet204.jmcarmen.tech, right? .tech is the top-level domain. There's an invisible dot there, right? We don't see it, but it's actually there in the records. jmcarmen, that's the apex domain, and cnet204, in this case, is the subdomain. That's the course I stole these from at Centennial. Now, I say I stole them. I created these, so, like, I stole them for myself. And I didn't change everything appropriately, so, yeah, there's some errors in the slides. That's okay. We have different record types that we use in DNS. So we have things like A records, right? A records are address records. They map a single host name to a single IP address, an IPv4 address. That's important. IPv6 uses a quad A record instead of an A record. And you're going to add A records this week. It says assignment 1 and 2, but you're doing it this week in Lab 5. Ignore the assignment 1 and 2 bit. That's the inaccuracy here. CNAME records, which you're also going to use, are canonical name records, and they provide aliases for another A record. You're going to use a CNAME record, I believe, next week. Text records, TXT, those are used to store information about your domain. They can be used for things like verifying your domain ownership or preventing email spam. We're going to use a text record next week. Some of these things, you keep hearing me say we're going to do these next week. A lot of these things we're going to do next week. We're basically going to do the A record today and the other things later. Not necessarily next week, but later. MX records. So those are mail exchange records. They provide information about the mail servers for your domain. It says you won't be adding them in this course. You totally will be in Lab 7, I think it is. Maybe it's Lab 8. Later in the course. And then finally, pointer records, PTR. So they're commonly used in reverse lookup zones, which map your IP address to your host name instead of the other way around. Your address record has a host name, right, and an IP address that it corresponds with. Pointer records have the IP and then the host name. It's just the reverse. Now, you query DNS records all the time, right? You type in a URL into your address bar of your browser, and it goes out on the internet and finds it. To do that, it has to do a DNS lookup. So that's what we mean by querying the server. But there's several commands you can use to query servers manually, and they're extremely useful for confirming and troubleshooting issues when you're first learning how to configure DNS. And since you're using a domain name registrar, you're going to have to use these. However, you can use them, since we're using real DNS on the internet, right? Where you can use these from any device that has them, not necessarily just your virtual machine. You can use NS lookup. So that takes you into an interactive DNS lookup mode from your command line. And you can issue as many queries as you want. When you're done, you just type exit to quit. And it's a cross-platform utility, so it works in Windows, Linux, and Mac OS. The host command provides you corresponding information for a DNS lookup. So if you type host and then give it an IP address, it gives you the FQDN, the host name that IP maps to. If you provide it the host name, it gives you the IP that maps to. That works in Linux and Mac OS. Dig provides you some additional information about DNS and all the records that it maps to. It's a really useful utility. It works in Linux, it works in Mac OS, and there's a browser-based solution in the Google Admin Toolbox provided by Google. There's a link here, toolbox.googleapps.com/apps/dig, and that gives you the ability to use Dig through a web browser. So you just type it in. It's awesome. It's extremely useful. You're going to use it not in assignment 1 and 2, well, probably in assignment 2, but in the labs where we have anything to do with DNS, basically. It's going to be extremely useful. So as promised, here's some sample output. This is in Windows, just to show you it works cross-platform. So you type NS lookup, give it a domain name, and we get the address that it maps to, right? So www.jmcarmen.me mapped to this 35. Whatever address, which is an elastic IP in AWS, even though this is for another course, or rather from another course. Using the host command, this is in Ubuntu, but it works fine in Linux Mint, which is your workstation VM. It works fine in Amazon Linux. That's the thing I was originally trying to think of, which is what we're using in this course, right? So host, we provide it at jmcarmen.me. We see the IP address, and if we provided host and then the IP address, we would see just the same information but reversed, right? Useful for confirming. And then here's what dig looks like. Again, this is in Ubuntu. Doesn't matter. So dig, and you give it a domain name or an address, and we see the answer section here. That's all the information we want particular here. So we see www.jmcarmen.me dot, right? Remember there's that dot at the end. That's the time to live. It's an address record, and there's the value. So time to live is the amount of time it takes before the record has expired and a new one needs to be requested. That's a very useful thing when you're configuring DNS, because if you want that set to a low value, since we're dealing with real DNS and it's replicated all over the world, if you make a mistake configuring an A record, you map it to the wrong IP, for example, you might have to wait for the value that you set to expire before you create a new one. And here's an example of the output using dig through the Google Admin Toolbox. So you see I provided a domain name, I wanted the A record, and here's the A record, right? I could search for CNAME, I could search for MS records, I could search for all kinds of stuff here. So there's the time to live, 30 minutes, and there's the value. So you're going to use a lot of this in Lab 5. In Lab 5, you're going to use Bindistrar, which by the time you're watching this video, you should have received an invite to. I need to send them out after I finish recording this, so as this is uploading and publishing, I'm going to be doing that. You're going to use Bindistrar to register a domain name. It's free. It's something Andrew Smith has set up for this course, and it's great. Next week, you're going to learn how to configure HTTPS. So we've got a web server, right? We're going to add some encryption using TLS with certbot. And that's next week in Lab 6. So, on that note, I'm going to pause. And I'm going to fire up my Learner Lab and get things ready to go for Lab 5. Alright, so I've got my Learner Lab started up. I've SSH'd from the command line. I'm accessing my WW instance. I'm actually just going to disconnect because I don't need that immediately. And we're going to start in on Lab 5. So we're going to register a domain name, right? You should have received an email invitation to Bindistrar, which I haven't set up as I'm saying this, but I will set up for you after this. And this is what that looks like, right? When you log in, don't forget your password because I can't do anything about it, right? Here's what it looks like. So I've got no records in my zone. You're going to have yourdomain.ops345.ca. Mine's jason.carmen.ops345.ca. That's totally fine. So we're going to log in to Bindistrar. There's a link in the lab. And we're going to add two records. We're going to add an A record and a CNAME record. So the A record is going to be your username .ops345.ca, so no host required. And the value we're going to put in here is going to be your elastic IP, which I need here. So that's going to be, let me just snap this to the side. I can't copy paste because I'm not accessing this on my virtual machine. So we're going to give that, not that one, 44.214.229.17. So that's the elastic IP you gave your router. We're going to add a record. Right? It might take a minute. Should get a thing saying OK, and it's refreshed. We're also going to add a CNAME record, and it's going to be www. Whoops. And that's going to be just for that. So we're good to go. So click add. No, we're not good to go. We're not good to go. Let's try that then. Maybe it's that. All right. I think we're okay. Let's find out. I think I needed to put a dot at the end. Yeah, include the trailing dot. So let's get rid of that one. And add it again. So it's a CNAME record. jason.carmen.ops345.ca dot. There we go. Add. Okay. We should be good. Now, we're going to query to make sure everything works. So we can use NSLOOKUP. Whoops. www.jason.carmen.ops jason.carmen.ops345.ca. And yeah, here we go. And if we do jason.carmen.ops345.ca, look at that. There we go. So that's the correct IP. That's what we wanted. We can just Control-C to get out of this, or exit. We could use the host, right, just to show you the different things work. jason.carmen.ops345.ca, and that looks right. And we can use the Google admin toolbox. Hold on a second. So if you go here and click dig, and we give it www.jason.carmen.ops345.ca. You would, of course, be using your own stuff here, right? And that should be good to go, it looks like. Let's just drag that over and confirm that's the right IP, because if it's not, things are not going to work very well. Yeah, 44.214.229.17, that looks fine. Yeah. So now we should be able to SSH back in. But we can now just use our FUDN. Yes. Look at that. So it works. That's fucking awesome. And we should be able to access Nextcloud as well. Let's give that a go. We're literally just about done, actually. jason.carmen.ops345.ca/nextcloud. And we got to make sure http:// right? That looks good. We need to edit the trusted domain setting. So let's go do that quick. Give me a minute. I'm just going to actually troubleshoot this live. So I entered interactive sudo mode, right? Let's make that a bit bigger. Can we make that a bit bigger? There we go. So cd var www.html cd nextcloud, and if we look for the Nextcloud config file, it should be in there by config.php. There we go, and we got trusted domains here. So this should be restart Apache. We don't need sudo, right? And always status. I'm not 100% sure if restarting Apache was necessary there, but apparently that didn't work. Let's look in the config sample. Oh god, that's a lot of stuff. Let's open it and buy. There we go. And let's search for trusted. So, N to go to next, right? I think I need square brackets. That's probably it there. I'm just going to take a picture of that for myself. There we go. I'm going to save it. Just open it on my host, where I'm actually recording this. Alright, so let's get out of here. Let's go back into that config.php. Trusted domains. So here's what I needed here. My syntax was not quite right. So go into insert mode. We want tab that over. Square. Probably not necessary to do all this tabbing over nonsense, but those square brackets were necessary. So escape, colon, X. Oh, not yet. Insert mode, we need a comma afterwards as well. Colon, X. So let's actually add one. I think we need two here. I think we need json.harmon.ops345.ca as well, maybe. Let's give that a go. And look at that, we didn't actually have to restart the service. That's good to know. So there you go. There's lab 5 done. So a super crazy short video, isn't it? Let's go back in, pull that syntax up for you, because you, yeah, might make it easier. Take a screenshot and you're able to just use that. So, thank you for watching. Take care. Be safe. Have a great week. Oh, as a quick reminder, quiz this week, right? It's going to be quiz 2. And that's going to be based on, well, everything that wasn't on quiz 1. Let me double check the content just to be certain. Yeah, so I'm looking at it now. Questions about Apache. There's questions about PHP. Basically everything we did in week 4. Mounting that file system using that elastic block store file system, and how did we do that? And all about lamp stacks and load balancers and stuff that we did kind of in the assignment. So, take care, be safe, have a great week. Quiz 2 is open. Let me double check the dates. It's going to be open tomorrow. Well, and you'll be watching this on Monday, March 4th at midnight until Monday, March 11th at 11:59 p.m. Just do it, right? Take care, be safe, have a great week. Bye for now. See you in class.